horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Well, hello there and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. The theme of this episode is let's get ready to tremble, because the fear porn is being pushed on a number of different levels. You know, I was kind of hoping we were getting past that, but so much of our legacy media today really has kind of transmuted into a fear delivery platform. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. So now that we know a cold and flu season is here, oh boy, here we go. This is from the Idaho Capital Sun, courtesy of Audrey Dutton. Flus, cold, and COVID arriving in Idaho for a holiday reunion. Here's what you can do. And look at that multicolored map, the scary colors. I'm glad to see that we're in a nice light green color here in Idaho, where apparently it's not critical just yet, but do you remember the endless blood red maps with the body count going up all the time with COVID and just keeping that fear alive? Well, the media's back at it, and I don't really understand why. Look, COVID is still around. Cold and flu season is still around. But why do we trumpet things like this? For instance, look at this headline. Again, here's Audrey. Idaho reports first flu death of the season in older adult from North Idaho. Now, look, this is tragic to whomever the surviving family members are of this person who passed away from the flu. But when was this ever news? When was this headline news? Well, we got the first flu death of the season. In fact, it seems like the flu took a couple of years off, so everything could be assigned to COVID as far as what was making people die. But it just feels like we're being pushed to be hyper aware that, oh, there's sickness about, so, probably better be safe and put on your mask and do whatever you're told to do. I don't know about you, but I got real tired of this over the last couple of years. And sadly, it's medical establishments that are the very last places where this fear is just kept alive and very strictly enforced. I've had the unfortunate privilege of attending a couple of different doctor's appointments in the last week. And man, I'm telling you, they still take the masks very seriously. You walk in someplace, whoosh, someone will hand you a mask just as quick as you go in the door. It's not that you shouldn't be able to wear a mask, but it's just the idea that someone is trying to keep this alive and keep us afraid. It feels like our fears are being played upon. Hey, look, here's a different kind of fear. This is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Idaho, Mr. Hurwitz, who is sponsoring or co-sponsoring a United Against Hate event in North Idaho tomorrow. That would be Thursday afternoon. So what are we supposed to fear? Well, hate, of course. Don't you know? Hate is a very scary thing, and apparently it's something that we really need to make a stand for. In fact, let me give it to you in his words. He says, in my view, this initiative is particularly timely for Idaho as we have experienced a series of troubling hate incidents throughout the state in the past several years, Hurwitz said in a press release. Now, as Attorney General Garland has said, this is a moment for an all-hands-on-deck approach to combating unlawful hate. Okay, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, these events, this hate, can we have something specific? Because this is classic unspecified predicate in that we all know hate is probably something bad, but this doesn't really tell us what exactly did it consist of. And in some cases, I mean, it could be somebody stole a pride flag. Okay, that's theft of private property, or if they destroyed a pride flag, maybe that's, malicious destruction of someone's personal property. Those are crimes. Not because of what the person was thinking, but because they actually damaged someone's property. So yes, you have a victim. But again, what the person was thinking is really not that important. What's important is what did their actions accomplish? Did they take something that wasn't theirs? Okay, that's theft. Did they destroy something that wasn't theirs? Maybe that's vandalism or malicious destruction. But instead, we're left with this idea that, well, but there's hate out there. And that term unlawful hate, I mean, it begs the question, is there lawful hate? I mean, is there hate that is actually, prescribed by law? And I'm talking other than the 2 minutes hate that much of the legacy media here in Idaho has for, say, the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Because, man, I'll tell you, they're keeping that 2 minutes hate alive and constantly, Goldstein, look at these guys. They're doing the wrong thing. Nonetheless, think for yourself. Ask yourself when you hear someone say, well, we got a real problem with hate. Just pose the question, what exactly does that mean? In other words, what form does it take? And often you'll find that the accusation is made without anything specific to back it up. Unfortunately, in today's woke environment, an accusation is about as effective as a conviction, at least in the court of public opinion. So the accuser can make their accusation, then scurry back under the rock they came out from under, and the person who is accused is left to defend themselves. Oh, I've been accused of hate, and now prove that you don't hate. Prove a negative. Logically, that's impossible. But I just offer this as a caution. When you hear people throwing around hate, and especially when you have a U.S. attorney saying, well, it's an all-hands-on-deck operation to stop unlawful hate, someone is presuming that what we need to do is somehow get government inside people's hearts, inside people's heads, to make sure that they are only thinking appropriate thoughts. Nope, that's not going to work. The only objective way that we can actually make sure that justice prevails is when there is an actual victim, when someone or their property has been measurably harmed. That's when the state comes into play, whether it be the federal, state, or local, enforcement agencies, to seek justice. In other words, to seek restitution and to restore the person, to make them whole. But we don't need someone sitting around trying to figure out, are you thinking thoughts that are inappropriate? I mean, that's the hallmark of totalitarian regimes. And I guess some people might be comfortable with that. I, for one, am not. Here's another form of hate, though, and not hate, sorry. No, I'm caught up on the hate bandwagon. Sorry. Let me hop off real quick. Here's another form of fear, though. This one's a little more subtle, but buckle up. Veteran lawmakers see a busy 2023 for Idaho's legislative session. Idaho legislators plan to address school funding, property tax relief, and support for new mothers. They kind of have to do that after, the abortion, laws that went into effect following the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Now listen to this comment from the article. House Minority Leader Ileana Rubel is equally hopeful that the legislature will deal with school facilities. However, she's concerned that a perceived increase in the number of far-right Republicans in the legislature will pave the way for school vouchers, enabling parents to take money away from the public school system to pay for private or parochial education. So I don't know what the angle is here or why it's a perceived increase. Look, either are there more conservative legislators, and by the way, far right is now the euphemism for conservative, at least in the media lexicon. It's again a term intended to stoke fears. Oh, they're far right. Well, it must be really bad that they're in the legislature. And the idea that school vouchers, or in this case, school choice, is enabling parents to take money away from the public schools. Let's remember that money doesn't actually belong to the public schools until it's been through the appropriation process via the legislature. In other words, it's the taxpayers' money. And some options of school choice actually mean that parents keep that money in their pockets and then use it as they deem best for their child's education. But there will still be people who will claim, well, that's the school's money and you're taking it away from them. Here's another comment from Rebel who says, I think we'll see a resurgence in a lot of the bad bills we saw last session, including school vouchers and bills to imprison librarians. Oh, you mean to limit the access of inappropriate materials in schools or public libraries to children? Because, there's another angle to this. It's not just book burners want to take away something that brings joy to other people. There's some really degenerate, lurid stuff that's being peddled to kids. And in the name of, intellectual freedom, apparently some of these librarians feel like, well, we have to make it available to them. Maybe not. That's a call for the parents and the representatives they elect to represent them in the various lawmaking bodies or the regulating bodies within their municipalities. Rebel also said, I'm afraid the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade will open the door to more restrictions on personal rights, such as banning the use of contraception or banning pride parades. Now, I've heard nothing about banning the use of contraception. The only thing I've heard is that perhaps the public won't be forced to pay for someone's contraception. If they want it, they have to pay for it themselves. As far as banning pride parades, there is a very serious bill that is likely going to surface during next year's session that will limit public displays that would be considered inappropriate for children. Now, we're talking drag queen story hour. We're talking drag shows that are targeting kids. But it's mainly focusing on, will there be children present? Will it be in a public place? So the bottom line here is, there has to be a line drawn for where it's appropriate and where it isn't. If your kink is, look, I want to get together with my friends, dress in lingerie and twerk and do all that stuff, that's fine. Do it in private. Do it in a club. Do it in a private residence. but don't expect to have a public place to do it where anybody, including kids, are likely to see it. And don't blame those spoil sport, moralists for getting in there and spoiling your fun. It was you, the woke activists, who pushed this thing in the first place. You're the one who pushed the envelope, and now you're acting surprised when you find out, oh, people still have standards that they're willing to stand up and enforce. How sad that it was pushed to the point that now they're willing to get the legislature involved. But let's remember, it wasn't just parents looking for a reason to get out there and try to impose their values on someone else. This is a legit case of people trying to protect their kids. So let's see if we can dial the fear down a little bit. And I want to share with you an opportunity that is going to be available early in December. This is courtesy of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. You can go to idahofreedom.org to learn more about this. It's a course called Legislature 101, equipping Idahoans with the tools they need to engage with government, and it's coming back on December 8th and 9th. Dustin Hurst wrote this article for the Idaho Freedom Foundation. He says Idahoans looking to engage with lawmakers at the Idaho State House should plan to attend the Legislature 101 this December. It's offered by the Idaho Freedom Foundation. It teaches Gem State residents of all political stripes. This is important. This isn't just for far-right people or conservatives. This is for anybody who wants to learn how the legislative process works, how bills are developed, also how engaged citizens can make a difference in the Capitol. Now, they'll be offering one online class Thursday, December 8th from 7 to 9 p.m. This is so residents statewide can participate and learn from the Idaho Freedom Team. The second class will actually take place in Twin Falls at the Eastside Baptist Church on Thursday, December 9th. And it'll be on Friday, December 9th, in partnership with the Magic Valley Liberty Alliance. That'll run from 7 to 9 p.m. No registration required. There is no cost associated with this, but as Dustin suggests, if you find this valuable, you might want to consider making a donation to ensure that it's something that can continue into the future. Dustin says corporate interests employ an army of lobbyists at the Capitol promoting their big business agenda. On the other side are regular Idahoans who just want to keep Idaho free and prosperous. Legislature 101 is a critical tool in equipping Idahoans to go toe-to-toe with the likes of the IACI and win. Look at this, 1,000 Idahoans have attended Legislature 101 since the program's launch 2 years ago. So if you don't want to be in the dark, if you don't want to have to sit back in fear and just wait for, again, the legacy media to tell you how scary things are because of this bill or that bill, maybe get involved, learn about the bills, read them for yourselves, learn how to most effectively contact your legislatures, and make your influence felt. It's a 2-hour investment in your civic education. It's not going to cost you a dime, but most of all, it will dial the fear back. As for the legacy media, just one thought for you guys. If you could all just stop producing and consuming fear porn, that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm crying.
Nobody wants to see.
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.